this is a befitting finale to his, participation and engagement with state stakeholders. It's a great honor for us that the highest ranking, one of the highest ranking Police Service of Pakistan officers, Director General of National Police Bureau, Rai Tahir, is also present in person. He has traveled from Islamabad to Lahore to be present amongst us, the civil society and state representatives, to deliver a message on behalf of the government of Pakistan. So it is indeed a very important partnership which has developed between Pakistan's state stakeholders and civil society. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would now turn on to the next speaker. Ian Tennant is chair of the Alliance of NGOs. This is a Vienna-based alliance of NGOs on crime prevention and criminal justice, playing a lead role in civil society's active engagement at the multilateral fora, at the UN and other international forums. And the alliance has made a difference over a period of time, and it has been duly recognized. It is my great honor to serve as vice chair of this alliance, and it is for all of us, it's a great honor that Ian Tennant is going to talk to us, not only about the alliance, but overall civil society matters, and overall in the context of cooperation with Pakistan as well. So over to you, Ian Tennant in Vienna, please.
Thank you very much, Tariq, and thank you to all the organisers for inviting me to speak at this important conference on this first ever International Day on Transnational Organised Crime. As you mentioned, I'm currently serving as chair of the Alliance of NGOs on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice, which is the umbrella organisation bringing together more than 100 civil society organisations around the world to join efforts in engaging at the multilateral level on the prevention of and response to organised crime and engaging on criminal justice issues. As chair of the board, I'm representing the global initiative and serving alongside eminent board members, including Tariq Kosa, as you mentioned, who we are very proud to have as vice chair, and I see other board members on the call who will be speaking later as well. Our role is to advocate for, to facilitate and champion civil society engagement at the United Nations, primarily here in Vienna, where the UN Office on Drugs and Crime is based, and its policy-making bodies are based, but also around the world in other UN fora. The challenge that we face in doing so, and Mark already outlined the serious challenges that civil society face on the ground, is that in many countries, transnational organised crime has historically been treated as a security or a law enforcement issue, rather than a more broad rule of law, development, or indeed as a human rights issue. And responding in a more holistic way obviously requires a more whole of society response. The narrow approach that's been taken historically has resulted in limited civil society engagements and space in responding to organised crime, and consequently a misunderstanding of who civil society is and what their role can be and the value that they can bring to providing solutions. In Vienna, for example, the international community here was familiar with a broad range of NGOs, for example, supporting victims of human trafficking. But the idea of NGOs or civil society organisations looking more broadly at organised crime was not understood by many states. And this has meant that states are missing out on the vital research, evidence, analysis and experience that civil society can bring. At the same time, with declines in democratic values and the rule of law around the world in recent years, human rights defenders and civil society at large have become victims of shrinking spaces at the national level, with suspicion, hostility and violence directed at them. And this has also been reflected in a closed system of engagement on organised crime issues at the UN, including under the Conference of Parties to the UN Convention against Transnational Organised Crime. That is why, through the work we have done in recent years through the Alliance, obviously starting under the leadership of our previous chair, Anna Albatsi Del Frate, who will speak later, is to do what we can, despite these challenges, to ensure a broad range of voices engaging with member states and the UN in Vienna. We do this to demonstrate that civil society does not represent only narrow or technical interests, but are indeed central to more effective state responses against organised crime. We were therefore proud last month, building on the work we have done in recent years, including through the UNTOC engagement process in partnership with UNODC Civil Society Unit, to achieve two major milestones at the 12th Conference of Parties, which took place in October this year. Firstly, the largest and most diverse civil society participation in the UNTOC conference, with over 200 NGOs represented, including for the first time the presence of indigenous community representatives. Secondly, we were proud to deliver the first ever civil society declaration on more effective implementation of the UNTOC, which was developed by a subcommittee of board members, including myself, Anna Albatsi, Lisa Hartefeld from the Wildlife Justice Commission, who will, another vice chair who will speak as well, and Tarek Kosa himself. And Tarek, I should say, took on a leading role in the drafting, supported by a team of civil society experts that he had assembled in Pakistan. The declaration, signed by over 250 NGOs, contains recommendations on civil society access, on enhancing the impact of the Convention and its protocols, and more effectively addressing other crimes, such as crimes that affect the environment. I want to finish by saying that the importance of the leadership shown by Pakistan's state and civil society to multi-sectoral engagement on the UNTOC cannot be understated. Civil society engagement is sometimes mistakenly characterized as a Western phenomenon only, but this is clearly not the case. It's natural, and it's indeed necessary. If states want to get a grip and respond more effectively to organized crime, they need to do it. And shutting off avenues of engagement is a self-defeating activity. The leadership shown by Pakistan in this regard is to be applauded, and you now serve, as Mark said, as a pioneer and a role model, which will surely be followed by many others. Thank you for inviting me to join the meeting today, and good luck with the rest of the conference.
Thank you, Ian. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Ian Tennant, the chair of Alliance of NGOs on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice, talking to us from Vienna. Thank you, Ian, for your sentiments. And ladies and gentlemen, Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime supported us, the civil society of Pakistan, and when we have come up with two annual reports of 2022 and 2023 in the context of implementation of UNTOC review mechanism in Pakistan, so a civil society perspective has been placed on record in partnership with the government of Pakistan stakeholders. So that is where I think we are very grateful for the support given to us by the international community. Ladies and gentlemen, UNODC Civil Society Unit, another key partner, an international organization that has really steered the process of civil society engagement on not only the UNTOC review process, but on many initiatives that involve the civil society and the states in the context of projects, measures, and steps that are being taken in all over the region. Regional networks are coming up. They are encouraging pilot initiatives, and pilot initiative in Pakistan was first in Asia in September 2022, and UNODC Civil Society Unit was our key partner in that. I would now request in Vienna, Billy Batware of UNODC Civil Society Unit to please, for his observations, and especially in this context of the International Day Against Transnational Organized Crime and the experiences of UNODC Civil Society Unit in engaging with civil society and what is in store in future for us. Billy Batware, we're grateful to you for joining this conference. Over to you, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tariq. I hope I am audible. If you could give me a sign, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you so much, Tariq, for that kind introduction, and colleagues. And I'm very grateful and honored to be able to speak also at this very important roundtable on transnational organized crime, a whole of society approach in commemorating the first International Day for the prevention of and the fight against transnational organized crime. It's always difficult to speak after Mark Shaw and Ian Tennant, our trusted partners in this work. So I'm very grateful for their insights as well, laying out the challenges that we face posed by organized crime, but also stressing the importance of society engagement in fighting transnational organized crime in support of member states in this regard. And it's always good to see my colleagues from the Alliance of NGOs in Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice as well, our trusted partners in these efforts as well. As Tariq mentioned, my name is Billy. I am part of the civil society unit, and our work, our primary work here at the UNODC is to provide space for the engagement of non-governmental stakeholders, not only in the fight against transnational organized crime, but also issues related to corruption, drugs, and other forms of crimes. So it is always an honor for us to see that our civil society actors are actively engaging, and today is another example of how important you are in these spaces. For several years, as you know, we have been engaging and working collaboratively with you, many of you here in the room and those online, through our stakeholder engagement for Antwerp project, better known as you know as the SE for You project. And we have, as Tariq correctly mentioned, part of that launched a voluntary pilot initiative in Pakistan, the first in Asia. And this has been a very successful initiative, a model for many other countries. And I'm very grateful to Tariq Kosa for his engagement and leadership. Also, not only to engage within the Pakistani community, both the government, but also civil society, academic institutions, and private sector, but also to bring other international actors in this space through the so-called intercontinental dialogues, which he has led very successfully. So when the United Nations General Assembly adopted the resolution 78/267 in March of this year, establishing this International Day on the 15th of November, member states were very clear in recognizing the vital role that civil society play in combating transnational organized crime. And I quote, recalling the important role that civil society play, non-governmental and community-based organizations, private sector and academia in the prevention of and the fight against transnational organized crime and their contribution in this regard. End of quote. It is also important to highlight that during this year's first International Day, UNODC encourages under the theme of organized crime steals, corrupts, and kills. It's time we pull together to push back, to foster global collaboration through stronger partnerships between governments, civil society, and the private sector to address cross-border nature of organized crime and develop joint solutions. And I think, again, today is one of those examples. It is therefore of utmost importance that civil society actors also use this day to showcase their vital role and their contributions to prevent and combat these complex crimes. The Civil Society Declaration that Ian referred to, that is being unveiled today as well, is such a tool through which civil society organizations can raise and are raising its voice and share its important contributions and expertise to relevant legal frameworks that aim to prevent and combat transnational organized crime at national, regional, and international levels. To conclude, it is important to bring together all actors of stakeholders as done here today, governments, NGOs, academia, and the private sector in these efforts. All of you, as you know, It takes a network to defeat a network. And I'm very grateful to see networks being created at national and regional level to support these efforts. These efforts need to be a process where everyone relevant has a role to play and has a seat at the table. UNODC remains committed to supporting member states in their efforts to combat all forms of organized crime and to foster partnerships and collaboration with civil society in doing so. Today, some of the activities that we are engaging in as UNODC include a high-level event which is going to take place in about an hour from now, and I hope some of you will be able to follow it, and I know some of the colleagues online will be speaking there. You can join this, of course, through UN Web TV as well. And we have also taken the opportunity to showcase your voices through 23 high-impact stories that we are showcasing on our Awards On platform. Some of you have provided these impact stories, and we want to provide space for that. So we invite you to look at those and engage with us in those efforts. Congratulations again to Rick and the partners for organizing this event and for engaging and helping us to commemorate this very important day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Billy Batware from UNODC Civil Society Unit. Ladies and gentlemen, on the launch of the pilot initiative on UNTOC review mechanism in September 2022 in Islamabad, two of our friends from Vienna, UNODC, one Anders Fransson from UNODC Civil Society Unit, and from the UNTOC Secretariat, Issam Al-Fayad, they were personally present in Islamabad while this pilot initiative was launched by Pakistan. So thank you, Billy. You've been a great source of support, and this UNODC Civil Society Unit and Pakistani state and civil society actors have a very strong bond and partnership. Thank you for your sentiments. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now go to the Netherlands, The Hague, and would be requesting our colleague who is also on the board of Alliance of NGOs on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice, Lisa Hartwell. Lisa is from Wildlife Justice Commission, and she's also vice chair of the board, and a voice who is basically talking about the emerging new crimes and trends, especially in the context of crimes against the environment. So over to Lisa Hartwell in The Hague for your observations and remarks on this International Day Against Transnational Organized Crime. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Tarek. It is really an honor to be here today on the first International Day Against Transnational Organized Crime. And again, thank you, Tarek, for inviting me to speak today. As you mentioned, my name is Lisa Hartwell, and I am the Director of External Relations and Communication at the Wildlife Justice Commission, and also proud to be one of the vice chairs of the Alliance of NGOs. I'd like to start off very briefly by introducing the Wildlife Justice Commission, which is an NGO which aims to help disrupt and dismantle transnational organized criminal networks that profit from wildlife, timber, and fish, which is a significant form of a crime that affects the environment. We are one of the many civil society organizations that play a supportive role in tackling crimes that affect the environment. And we do this by working with and providing technical assistance to law enforcement across global criminal supply chains. And our operational findings help inform our policy work, which aims to raise awareness and increase political will to effectively tackle these crimes, for which the UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crimes provides important tools. Now, I'd like to address today the Civil Society Declaration that was already introduced by Ian earlier, and the specific paragraphs that we have included reflecting the views of civil society organizations on crimes that affect the environment. The Declaration highlights the crucial role, first and foremost, of civil society organizations in promoting the implementation of the UN Transnational Organized Crime Convention to prevent and combat such crimes in different ways depending on their mandates and their expertise. The declaration calls for a more meaningful and whole-society approach in tackling crimes that affect the environment and the UNCLOS as well. It also underlines, and this has also been mentioned by previous speakers, the threats and dangers faced by those exposing crimes that affect the environment and associated corruption, such as journalists, environmental defenders, indigenous peoples, and calls for their support and their protection. At the 12th session of the Conference of the Parties of the UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, we were really glad to see increased attention and recognition by state parties in addressing such crimes, which the declaration also welcomes. During this session, a resolution to enhance measures to prevent and combat crimes that affect the environment falling under the scope of this convention was adopted. And I really had wished for provisions that were originally included in earlier drafts to remain, such as strong language on the inclusive role of civil society organizations. It did establish an open-ended intergovernmental expert working group that is mandated to identify gaps in the implementation of the convention and the legal framework to effectively address crimes that affect the environment and consider possible responses to any gaps. And this is also in line with the recommendations included and called for by all these members of civil society signing up to the Civil Society Declaration, which calls to effectively use existing tools under the UNCLOS, such as, for example, special investigative techniques, joint investigations, to address crimes that affect the environment, alongside efforts to review and to update the criminal justice framework. Well, the role of civil society organizations in supporting or providing expertise to this group is not explicitly outlined in this resolution. I think, and very much in line with what Ian had addressed in his address earlier, as Alliance, and I think collectively with other members of civil society and working together with the University Civil Society Unit, we stand ready to support where we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alliance of NGOs, that a very meaningful engagement strategy of civil society and other fora like UN was strategized, and she is also, we must acknowledge, a pioneer in pushing through this idea of having the first ever civil society declaration on UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime. She is an expert herself on firearms legislation and other issues, but it has been a great honor and a pleasure for us to have her on the board of Alliance of NGOs. So she still serves on the board. And over to you, Anna Alwazi, for your comments and your remarks in the context of the Day Against Transnational Organized Crime. Anna, over to you. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here. As I said, of course, I'm not really the first chair of the Alliance, because this is also a story that would deserve to be told more frequently. The Alliance existed before, but didn't have strength, didn't have formal structure, didn't have a voice, and what happened was that I managed to be the first of the reconstructed alliance that you see now is very effective, and it's bringing more people to the position of having a say. So thank you very much for introducing me this way. I am representing the NGO, which I am the executive director, that is called CHEMIS, Knowledge for Safety and Good Governance. At CHEMIS, we have a project that is effective implementation of the firearms protocol to prevent misuse and armed violence. I would just like to make a little consideration today. This day, the creation, the establishment of this international day, for whom? It is for the international community. So it's very important to have finally a recognition that everybody has to do something to prevent transnational organized crime. And that means that the role of civil society, that obviously is crucial in making sure that states do what they commit to do. But there is a circular process of exchange of information and taking into account the results of studies, the findings, the analysis of the data, everything that may advance in the knowledge and effectively prevent. The prevention is very difficult to measure, of course, because how can you measure something that doesn't happen? This is a simplistic statement, but really everything that increases knowledge is going to contribute to the prevention of transnational organized crime. A little example I wanted to give you in the latest conference of the parties in October, the resolution L8 Rev was adopted on firearms. There is one paragraph in this resolution that really opens our heart for the first time in text dealing with the firearms protocol that used to be the international instrument on firearms relatively isolated from the other processes, such as the program of action on small arms and light weapons. There is a reference to the impact of firearm trafficking on violence. And that is opening a door on taking into account that firearm trafficking affects lives and is connected with other forms of trafficking, and there is a violence component in all of that. So indeed, the Civil Society Declaration is helping in coordinating all these different points of view. It has a formal structure that is well received. It's a tool to communicate these things. And I wish to thank again Tariq for his leadership in making sure that it was finalized in the nice format now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was Anna Alwazi, who has been instrumental in very meaningful civil society engagement strategies that has been worked out, and which Ian Tennant is, forwarding and moving with those vision and other things that was provided by her. Ladies and gentlemen, we see Nadeem Khan in Nairobi, Kenya, also one of the very important civil society organization. So I don't know, Nadeem, if you could say a few words in the context of this International Day Against Transnational Organized Crime before we revert to some of the speakers and keynote addresses within the room here in Lahore. So Nadeem, over to you for your brief comments in the context of our day. You are a great partner from Kenya, where another initiative has been launched in the context of pilot initiative in Nairobi, so in Africa. Nadeem, over to you.
Thank you very much. Can you confirm everybody hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Tariq, for giving this opportunity today for this the day important day for us. And I appreciate that because of your guidance and giving guidance, we have created your Civil Society Alliance, and we are working very well with guidance by you people. And I'm the one now is the first chief of Civil Society Alliance in Kenya. And end of the day, Pakistan is my home country, and I represented International Organization. And I'm so proud of the people, the work we do in Pakistan. And I'm enjoying myself with the of the vice chair. And this is my home country, and I see people, the work we do. I really appreciate and I'm proud of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nadeem Khan, for your sentiments. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will revert to some of the speakers in the room here. And I would first request John Collins, Director, Academic Engagement, who has come from Vienna. It is his first visit to Pakistan. And it is also to be informed that the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime has set up a new observatory in the region, which is Central and South Asia Observatory. And John is on a visit, exploratory visit, of engaging with the key state stakeholders as well as civil society organizations, exploring work which can be done in Pakistan and also broadly in the region, especially Afghanistan, Central Asian states and other South Asian nations. So we welcome John Collins on his first visit to Pakistan. He's been to Islamabad, he's been to Karachi, and this is his final leg of journey to Lahore. And so we have a strong partnership. John has a background of being an academician and has been teaching at the London School of Economics, and of late he is now Director Academic Engagement in Vienna. He'll talk about more on this, I think. Over to you, John Collins, please.
Yes, well, thank you, Tariq. And I have a few things to get through, but I'll try to be as quick as I can because our director, Dr. Mark Shaw, has already been through a lot of it. I will make a very quick attempt at a joke on behalf of the various international audience we have. I'm Irish, and there is a saying that in Ireland people don't speak fast because they're afraid that somebody will interrupt them if they slow down. But I am going to do my best to speak clearly and slowly for the sake of the non-native speakers on the call. I first off want to say a huge thank you. Well, firstly, thank you to Dr. Mark Shaw and Ian Tennant for being on the call and supporting this as fellow GI colleagues, and Paddy Ginn, who I believe is on the call as well, who I'll come to in a moment. But as Tariq said, my role as Director of Academic Engagement at the Global Initiative. I focus on fostering strategic partnerships with universities around the world. And so even today we were having a meeting with Beacon House University just before this event, and a very productive and very interesting discussion. So I think universities and academia is always a good way to foster and engage discussions on this topic from the outset. I want to say a huge thank you to Mr. Tariq Kosa for enabling this trip. This began as a sense that we would like to do more exploratory work, and that we would, a field visit would help build up awareness among stakeholders in country, and also on the GI end that we would develop expertise. And I really have to say, from start to finish, this has been an extraordinary field visit, from my time in Islamabad through Karachi, through my time in Lahore. So I want to say a really sincere thank you to Tariq and all colleagues at the CGR and just the various partners that have hosted me throughout the week. Sarmid Saeed, who has been my incredibly gracious host while I'm here in Lahore at the moment as well. So this really started off as an attempt to accelerate our work in Pakistan. I think, as from what you've heard and seen, this has, I think, been quite a success. And I think we have a huge amount. We're going to meet later to discuss this further. We have a huge amount to build on here. And I think, as our director, Mark Shaw, said, GI is very committed to Pakistan. And we see this as core to the work that we're doing in the region. And so we really want to build on that. And I'll talk a little bit about the observatory in a moment. I also want to thank the audience for coming here, for braving the smoke, who came in person, and all of the participants who joined online as well. So to tell you a little bit about our plans for GI development in the region. About 4 years ago, we have consistently had engagement, and Dr. Shaw and Tariq have been working over the years on international collaborations with Pakistan. But roughly 4 years ago, we started a research project within GI with a particular focus on Afghanistan. So looking at guns, migrant smuggling, human trafficking, drugs, mining, and trying to develop a research base around that. And very quickly, through the support of some really brilliant Pakistani consultants, for example Shahryar Fazli, we started to expand that scope regionally and bring in a discussion of Pakistan into that. And so the discussion within our own organization was, how do we make this, how do we do some work that encapsulates the entire region and enables linkages across the various criminal economies, the criminal activities in the region? And that's where we decided, our director Mark Shaw decided that we would create the Central and South Asia Observatory, which was launched last year. And very quickly what we ascertained was that we wanted Pakistan to be a real focal point in this development. And so in discussions with Tariq, we very quickly established the Strategic Advisory Group for GI on Pakistan. And we have since he has pulled in numerous partners, and he is very much serving as the figurehead and the lead on that, and pulling in various partners that we can work with and develop capacity within country. We're also launching a project, Dr. Shaw mentioned the Resilience Fund. We're launching a project on community resilience and trafficking in person in Pakistan in the coming months. And that will be funding a small number of civil society organizations who are working in building community resilience, really ground level work against pushing back against transnational or trafficking in persons. So number one is those are the two main areas that we focus on. The Central South Asia Observatory linking Pakistan into this, but really making Pakistan a focal point in this, a real model for what can be done when you have connections with very senior officials and very active, proactive and engaged officials in country. And we look at this really as a model for the rest of the Central South Asia region. I'll also mention we've added an engine of growth to the Central South Asia Observatory. We've just appointed a new GI colleague, Paddy Ginn, who again I think is on this call, and he's now really leading our Central South Asia work. Now he brings a tremendous experience on the region from working in Afghanistan and more broadly, and also a tremendous expertise on arms trafficking. And I have to say this has been a discussion that has come up time and time again over the last week for me, is this focus on arms and how important this is from a transnational crime perspective. So I think this meeting in itself marks a new phase in our work in Pakistan, and I'm very excited for the discussion. And again, I'm very just delighted to be here, able to be here in person, and to thank everybody for making that possible, and particularly Tariq. So I'll hand over with that. So thank you.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to have you here in Pakistan. We look forward to meaningful partnership and certain initiatives developing out of this visit. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know whether Tariq Parvez Saab, our President of National Initiative Against Organized Crime, has been able to join from Dubai. If he has, we have to go for his keynote address. Yes, Mr. Tariq Parvez, I see, is traveling. He's in Dubai. Mr. Tariq Parvez is the President of National Initiative Against Organized Crime that we launched in November 2019, and since then is the chair of our advisory board. And Tariq Parvez is an authority as an expert on organized crime, on counterterrorism and other key challenges that Pakistan faces. He's traveling with his family to Dubai, but I'm glad that he was able to find some time. And over to Mr. Tariq Parvez for your thoughts on this important International Day Against Transnational Organized Crime, and your key messages for the civil society and the state actors within Pakistan. Over to Mr. Tariq Parvez.
Thank you very much, Tariq. Good afternoon to everybody from Dubai. We don't have much far there, so that's a bit surprising for me. It's a real honor to be able to address this roundtable conference on the inaugural International Day Against Transnational Organized Crime. I will be very brief. As we all know, that this day is being celebrated as a result of the UN General Assembly resolution in March 2024, and the resolution very clearly stipulated two objectives for this day. Number one was to create awareness amongst the people about the importance of organized crime in their respective countries. And number two was to suggest ways in which to enhance international cooperation. I have just made two quick points. Number one, it is indeed very correct to say that awareness in many countries about the importance of organized crime, about its impact on governance, on rule of law, on economy, on security, is not really understood. So that is a very important first step. But my view is that to create awareness within the society in different countries, we need resource persons in the civil society. So resource person who can understand the different dimensions of organized crime, who can analyze it on the basis of risk-based assessment. We have some very good resource persons, but probably we need to expand it more. And I think there is a need to have international cooperation on this thing in the form of online courses on different areas of organized crime, so that we have capacity building of the resource persons within different societies. These are the people who will then write about it, who can talk about it, with logic, with data, and I think that will be a big step forward. Secondly, I think we need to focus on areas of interest in different countries. For example, in Pakistan, terrorism is a serious issue. During 2023, Pakistan was the fourth worst affected country by terrorism in the world, according to the Global Terrorism Index. And we know that one of the most important sources of funding of terrorism in Pakistan is organized crime. We have cases of extortion, kidnapping for ransom, and other forms of collection of funds by the terrorist organization. And I think that probably we haven't been able to study back, we haven't been able to look deeper into this phenomenon. Now, this is an area which is of great concern to Pakistan, and if we go internationally, we can have some international allies who can help us develop some expertise in it, some shared knowledge, best practices, international best practices. That would be really important for us. So these are the two points which I wanted to make. I'm sure all of the points must have been discussed by the different speakers, and I don't want to prolong it. And my compliments to CFHR and CFHR for organizing these events and for successfully involving in this global audience. A great step forward. And I think that the objective of the inaugural International Day Against Organized Crime is more than that with this event today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tariq Pervez, for your strategic leadership in the context of serious and organized crime that you have been combating throughout your service, and you continue to fulfill that mission even today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the Director General of the National Police Bureau, Ryan Tahir, present amongst us, traveled all the way from Islamabad for this event as a guest of honor. And Tahir was Additional Inspector General of Counter-Terrorism, Department of Punjab, took over this, met the scourge of menace of terrorism in Punjab, took it head on. He was Inspector General of Balochistan Police as well. And lately he was National Coordinator of National Counter-Terrorism Authority. And now he heads the National Police Bureau, which is a focal organization in the context of, being the secretariat of all reform measures in the criminal justice sector. And Tahir is also, the National Police Bureau is the secretariat, designated secretariat by the government of Pakistan on the UNTOC review mechanism process also. So this shows the level of political commitment of the government, that they have joined with the civil society to raise a special secretariat within the National Police Bureau, having civil society and the state actors sit together and debate these issues and do something about the challenges. So Tahir, thank you for traveling from Islamabad. I would like you for your keynote address, for your thoughts on this first International Day against Transnational Organized Crime. Tahir, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tariq Khosa, the real force behind the efforts against transnational organized crime in Pakistan and around the globe. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Civil Society Alliance from Pakistan and all over the world. Very good afternoon from Lahore, although we are having a smoky afternoon. It's both an honor and solemn responsibility to sit before you today and discuss as we commemorate first ever UN declared International Day for the prevention of and against against transnational organized crime 2024. As I reflect on this moment, I'm reminded of the stories we hear and the data we analyze daily, which highlight the urgent and daunting challenges of transnational organized crime. The significance of today's observance lies not only in raising awareness, but in reaffirming our shared commitment to combat a threat that undermines the fabric of our society. Organized crime networks do not operate in isolation. They exploit our globalized world to carry out activities that devastate communities, disrupt economies, and put human lives in jeopardy. Having served over 3 decades in the police service of Pakistan, I have witnessed the evolution of our policing strategies, but also the escalating complexity of threats that cross borders with qualities. Presently, I have the honor to head the National Police Bureau, which is the premier police institution at national level that plays a critical role in shaping Pakistan's policies and practices to fight transnational organized crime. Ladies and gentlemen, as Mr. Tariq Khosa has already told you, that National Police Bureau serves as a secretariat for supporting coordination with key ministries for review of the state of transnational organized crime. Hence, it is the focal body for UNTOC review and UNTOC efforts. The National Police Bureau also serves as secretariat to the National Police Management Board, providing a strategic platform to develop unified responses to our country's most pressing policing challenges, such as organized crime. Through promoting coordination among all police forces, National Police Bureau ensures a cohesive and comprehensive strategy that addresses threats requiring a national level response. Furthermore, the National Police Bureau serves as Secretariat for Police Reforms Committee appointed by the Chief Justice of Pakistan. We have expedited the implementation of the committee's key recommendations focusing on transforming policing practices to meet contemporary challenges. Dedicated working groups comprising representatives from relevant police organizations have been established to address critical reform areas. These include updating criminal laws, enhancing urban policing strategies, refining investigative procedures, addressing public complaints efficiently, ensuring internal accountability, and promoting alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. The Bureau's main functions encompass various essential areas: driving police reforms and development, fostering national level coordination, maintaining comprehensive crime databases, and ensuring standardization of practices among police organizations. We conduct research and analysis on policing and crime, promote gender-responsive policing, oversee the selection of personnel for human peacekeeping missions, and collaborate with international organizations to adopt best practices and innovative policing methods. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, that trafficking in persons is again reality of modern times that affects an estimated 27.6 million people worldwide, with Asia accounting for highest numbers. Victims of trafficking, especially women and children, are often subjected to forced labor, sexual exploitation, and modern slavery. Pakistan is both a source and transit country for trafficking, making this a pressing issue for us to address. A report by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, the UNODC, reveals that globally, less than 1% of human trafficking cases are successfully prosecuted, a figure that speaks volumes about the challenges we face. In Pakistan, we have made strides through our anti-human trafficking and migrant smuggling units, but more needs to be done. We must intensify our efforts to break the chains of trafficking through stricter border controls, enhanced victim support services, and collaborative international enforcement. But just as the human trafficking flourishes in environments of vulnerability and desperation, so too does the smuggling of migrants, a related crisis that preys upon the hopes of those seeking a better life. The smuggling of migrants is a distressing and pervasive issue. In 2023 alone, the International Organization for Migration, the IOM, reported over 5,000 deaths of migrants attempting perilous journeys across the waters. In our modern world, however, threats of transnational organized crime are not only physical but also increasingly digital. The same networks that smuggle people and engage in terrorism have expanded into cyberspace, making cybercrime one of our most pressing challenges. The flow of illicit arms. The issue of illicit arms trafficking poses a severe threat to Pakistan's security and stability. The unchecked flow of illegal weapons exacerbates violence and sustains conflicts, particularly in a region with history of tribal disputes and insurgency. The three threats, trafficking in persons, flow of illicit arms, and drug smuggling, highlight the multifaceted and interconnected nature of transnational organized crime. Tackling these challenges requires a unified and comprehensive approach.
Reminds us and would continue to remind us that the harmful and grave effects of transnational organized crime are not limited to a single community, one jurisdiction, one country, one nation, but transnational and gravely near region. And we, in the government of Pakistan, very sincerely and very strongly believe that as part of the international community, we have an obligation to fight this menace in our own jurisdiction, within our own borders, as well as in combination with other countries, through international instruments, through multilateral forums, because we believe that this menace that cannot be fought through one country alone. That's why Pakistan, along with so many other countries, had ratified the UNCTAD in 2010, and subsequently Pakistan enacted a number of laws in line with these international obligations. Just to mention a couple of them, we enacted in 2018 two very important laws for fighting against human trafficking and smuggling of persons. Ladies and gentlemen, let's also recognize the importance of community engagement. And this is not surprising that today we heard, and many of you know, that Pakistan was the second in the world and first in Asia to launch this pilot initiative. It's not a small achievement, as I think my friend the intendant mentioned that very often it is perceived that civil society engagement is something which is like a taboo. So we owe him this challenge through a very collaborative approach, and I again would pay my compliments to Mr. Tariq for his leadership. Apart from the legal enactments, Pakistan also realized the importance of initiating a number of other layers, not limited to just legal intervention. And this was the reason that Pakistan has created the victim support programs. It has also established very elaborate databases to collect data on the victims, the offenders, witnesses, and other aspects of this crime. We have taken a number of measures to raise awareness. As was earlier mentioned, the building heritage and global heritage is very important fight to promote resilience of community. So these are the steps that have helped us to foster our communities and efforts to overcome some of the challenges as have been highlighted by the ex-ambassador to Pakistan due to our geography, due to the location and internal challenges, and Baksha also highlighted the complexity that we face here in Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, I would again re-emphasize the importance of civil society engagement. As most of you represent the civil society, I would also like to pay homage to you for coming up and joining hands within your respective jurisdiction as well as internationally with your government counterparts as well as within your own frameworks to fight against this menace. It's our strong belief that the governments alone cannot fight this menace. So that's why we believe, as was said earlier, in the whole of society approach. And we have a very, very positive and very energizing relationship with the civil society in Pakistan. And to foster it further, let me also share here that we are now developing our first ever organized crime strategy in Pakistan. We would be also looking towards the receive for its work when we come to its implementation. This strategy would further strengthen our efforts already in place to fight against transnational organized crime. And as I said earlier, it would not only take a society approach, but it would focus more closely on collaboration, on building partnerships with the civil society, promoting resilience in the communities, and also establishing cross linkages of organized crime with violence, conflict, and terrorism. And because we believe that this seriously affects not only individually the victims, but also collectively the governance, the economy, and the political processes. So we'll be focusing more on the gender and human rights aspect for promotion of rule of law. I again reassure on behalf of the government of Pakistan to all our partners, both nationally and internationally, that we are very committed to put our foot forward and to join hands with all the stakeholders who are working tirelessly for this cause. And we would welcome any collaboration like we heard earlier on that our international partners are undertaking certain initiatives in Pakistan. We are very appreciative of these initiatives, and we encourage both international organizations and international non-governmental organizations to initiate such measures, and we will be here to support you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ihsan Sadiq. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know that Pakistan's national security policy, released in December 2021, practically implemented since January 2022, carries this organized crime as a national threat, recognizes that. So therefore, I'm glad to be here now that the government of Pakistan plans to come up with a national strategy against organized crime. On behalf of the civil society, the Center for Governance Research came up with a national strategy against serious and organized crime in Pakistan in January 2022. This strategy has been shared with the provinces and with the Federation, and I encourage the civil society stakeholders to go through this, because this was the voice of the civil society in the context of serious and organized crime that we face in Pakistan, and some of the strategies and action has been suggested. I'm told that through UNODC Civil Society unit, some organizations were sent a link in Southeast Asia to join today's conference. If there is someone online from our partners at the civil society organization from Southeast Asia, we would encourage him or her for her views before we sort of open our in-house debate for conclusions in the context of challenges in the national serious and organized crime. So I don't know whether there is someone still online from Southeast Asia. All right. Anyway, we are now going to open for an internal suggestions, debates, a quick round up within the room. And I will request both Ms. Sadek and Barrister Umar Khan to kindly steer the discussion around some of the key challenges Pakistan faces in the context of transnational organized crime.
Thank you, Tariq, Pervez, all esteemed guests, members of the civil society. On behalf of Center for Human Rights, I welcome you all. As you're aware, the Center for Human Rights is jointly hosting this event with CGR and the Global Initiative. We would have liked our Director 7 to speak today, but she is a sufferer of stroke and is unable, unfortunately, to talk. I think a lot of speakers have emphasized the role of the civil society, so we would like to give civil society the space to share what they think are the issues around transnational organized crime, also organized crime within Pakistan's local context, but also in how we can partner with state institutions to combat it. Pakistan, as other speakers have said, has remained in the lead, both in terms of being one of the first countries in Asia in the pilot initiative, but also now with this marking of the first International Day for the Prevention and Fight Against all forms of transnational organized crime. I think one of the most important things which we have seen demonstrated by our national focal person, Mr. Sadek, in his steadfast resolve to the role of the civil society is an understanding that transnational organized crime, as Mr. Ian Tennant earlier said, is not just a law enforcement challenge. It has an economic dimension, it has a society dimension, and therefore the role of society, the role of academia, like Ambassador Mansoor said, is crucially important, and this is the learning from international community as well, where they have relied on universities for thought process, for generation of ideas and solutions. In fact, a recent study that we did with CGR showed that trafficking in persons is actually a huge hit to the Pakistani economy. So this native wisdom that people going abroad, even if they're going abroad through irregular channels, is good for Pakistan's economy, is not economically entirely true, because a lot of money is lost to the traffickers and the smugglers. So research is absolutely crucial in that respect. I would also like to say that this day is not about marking, this first international UN Day. Pakistani civil society is also launching the civil society declaration. You would have seen that there is a pocket version which we have created for you. It marks the significance of civil society's role in transnational organized crime. So we will be launching it in Pakistan today as well. It was launched earlier in the Conference of Parties in Vienna in October. So around the issues of identifying problems and unpacking progress in combating transnational organized crime, I would like to open the house for any comments from civil society organizations first, and then from other government stakeholders later, if they haven't had an opportunity to speak. I would encourage you to be brief, if possible, because we have to wrap up the event in time. So, any volunteers?
I hope you can hear me well. My name is Michael. Since outside Germany, actually almost no one can pronounce this name. You may call me Maggie. I work in UCL Lahore, and I do research as PhD candidate at the same institution on the smuggling of migrants. I'm very, very grateful to the Center for Governance Research and the Center for Human Rights for facilitating this event, because I find it so crucial that we all want to come together and discuss that challenges. So thank you for that. Great bundle of thanks to John Collins for coming in person. That means a lot, because here in the Global South we used to be overseen when it comes to transnational networking. Although with reference to the smuggling of migrants, we are here in one of the hotspots globally. And we need to work on that with the support, as has already been said, of the international community as well. Since Mark Shaw has pointed out in the very beginning that the underprivileged of every society are the most affected by the consequences of transnational organized crime, I would like to add that the underprivileged of the society are unfortunately often as well at the starting point of transnational organized crime. And what I mean by that, with reference to the smuggling of migrants, are our experiences from the Punjab, that entire villages go bankrupt because the inhabitants of the village think to support one single talented boy to go and make it in the West, being unaware that the proceedings, that the huge funds that they deliver there, these kind of proceedings go directly into other criminal offenses covered by the UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime. And this is something, as well has already several times been said, this is something that needs a wholesale approach, not only by the civil society, not only by educational institutions, but I want to be very, very clear about that, because the UN reports also have evidence for this. It also means that all law enforcement officers here in the room and everywhere around Pakistan must very, very clearly say no to corruption, because this is where the entire thing starts. Transnational organized crime can only collect that huge funds in the villages because the law enforcement is strategically looking away. This is what is definitely true. I'm very happy, by the way, that we have the Migrant Resource Center implemented by the International Center for Migration Policy Development here in the room, even represented by 2 representatives. So maybe you would like to add some more details to what I have said from your work in the field. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maggie. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. As Maggie has already mentioned that I'm a representative of Migrant Resource Center Lahore, which is a project of ICM50, which is a Guyana-based organization working in more than 90 countries and also hold UN observer status. Over here, Maggie mentioned, and other participants also talked about that the reason maybe the organized crime have so much boom is that it affects the underprivileged. But here I would like to add that sometimes it's happening when we are talking about the human smuggling, lack of information. We work in the migration prone district in Punjab and KPK, and from our own experience, because we work closely with these people, all of them are not poor. I can give you many examples where they are willing to pay 9, 10 million easily just to leave Pakistan because they have this idea in their head that once they go over there, no matter they are going illegally or legally, they are going to have a very good life. The other reason this is happening because these people are not aware about the legal pathways. So there is need to be have more work on it, and we are very. I am very proud that I am part of an organization which is working on it in Pakistan. So far, if we talk about our work from our outreach activities, we have seen 70% change in the mindset of the people from these districts who have changed their plan to move abroad illegally, and now they are more focused on legal pathways. I would like to mention this: no one will opt for crimes. So this is very important. Instead of fighting the crime when it has happened, if the focus and work is more about not getting into the point where someone has to be willingly or unwillingly become a part of a crime, it will be much better if we are focusing more on prevention. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone who wants to shed some light on the issue? Thank you.
We primarily work on violence against women and children, and so today's consultation and conference really sort of propels us to sort of make more concerted effort on working on trafficking of women. Of course, trafficking is a form of violence against women and children, and we feel that it's and over the years, we've been around for almost 30 years now, and over the years we've had cases where children and women have been involved in trafficking cases, whether it's labor trafficking or sex trafficking. And we get to those cases, and we understand that a lot of these issues arise from the fact that there is lack of information in terms of what kind of response services exist at the government level. And so we, as an organization, we feel that what we can offer also is we have very strong community engagement. We've been working for many years, and it has been a lot of stress on community engagement also. So, of course, as an organization, we like to work on community engagement and create more awareness of issues and laws. Of course, there's a separate debate on the kind of sort of gaps we have in the laws itself, and we can sort of work on law reform also, but specifically in terms of just bridging the gap between sort of the survivors and the victims and the services. I think that's really important. That's a role that we can play because we work as a service delivery organization. And also we feel that Pakistan has committed under also as part of our sustainable development goals, where we feel that elimination of trafficking is an essential part of it, specifically targeting women and children. Many years ago, when children were, there was a whole issue of how children were trafficked as camel jockeys. We remember our child rights unit played a very sort of significant role in doing advocacy and creating awareness on how this issue needs to be addressed. Sort of taking from that experience also and sort of the current context that everybody's shared today, we really feel that we can sort of, we'd like to sort of focus more on trafficking women and children and sort of, and then use our sort of forum of legal aid. We also run a shelter for survivors of violence. So any victim that requires any kind of temporary sort of space to stay, we have that shelter. We've been running that shelter again for 30 years, and we sort of have those services where we can give security and other essential sort of services, which includes counseling, legal aid to victims of trafficking. So yes, we sort of run that kind of institution where we have those services in place, that infrastructure, as well as linkages across Pakistan, where we feel that if we work in a more sort of coordinated way and we have more referrals coming from other organizations, the police and other sort of government state bodies, I think we can sort of as a civil society organization definitely play a more effective role.
Just a couple of things before we get into organized crime. I think there's been so much discussion about civil society organizations and of course every single stakeholder and what possible role they can play. But I would like to mention that the National Commission for Human Rights has launched their annual report on migrant smuggling and has done fantastic and groundbreaking research on the different reasons as to why organized crime takes place in Pakistan. And I believe it's really unique because of the geopolitical landscape of the country as well. And I really urge you all to read the National Commission for Human Rights report on regular migration as well. I will be dropping that link some to the admin and the organizers. But I think one of the things that we'd like to talk about firstly and foremost are two things. The operational recommendations that the National Commission for Human Rights has, which is a government-approved A-star status body, which means that we're a watchdog as well as an institution of the government. And during this time, what we've seen with Pakistan's new case is that it's not just about poverty, it's not just about the fact that people looking for better opportunities, it's also the fact that I feel as a country, have failed to sort of bring about better regularization of these migrant channels. If we're talking about migrant smuggling as one of those issues, of course there are multiple issues when we talk about organized crime, but I'm going to focus a little bit more on migrant smuggling. One of a few key operational recommendations that we have, and then quickly I'll move on to the policy recommendations. The first operational recommendation that we do have is the establishment of dedicated awareness units in smuggling-prone areas and conducting assertive campaigns, because we do feel like there are not enough specialized investigation units within these districts, and there's also this lack of awareness in these districts when it comes to not just migrant smuggling, but I would also say border across drug trafficking as well. I do think it's particularly important as an operational recommendation to also talk about the setting up of these labor migrational channels and skilled mobility partnerships. So the reason why we talk about skilled mobility partnerships and the reason why we talk about developing legal migration channels is that, so there are people out there that lack the awareness of the law and what it actually is. And that's probably why they don't really know what's right and what's wrong. So that's not always somebody looking for a shortcut. And I think that could be one of the reasons why one of our shortcomings, I would say. I think that's something we can definitely work on. Moving on very quickly to the policy recommendations, and then we'll move on from there, is that it's really important for us to clarify legal responsibilities among law enforcement. That's really important. And the reason why we do that is so that they can address inconsistencies in the existing legal framework. And furthermore, the establishment of well-defined pathways, again, for regular migration, which I think is very important. And furthermore, of course, targeting education, targeting and alleviating people from poverty, all of these things I feel like are one of the reasons why Pakistan makes this, unfortunately, this perfect place for organized crime. But I do feel like the introduction of these specialized units, as well as reporting with institutions like Center for Human Rights, as well as CFHR, can further combat that. So that's it.
Thank you. We are also three parts: laws, prosecution, and international cooperation. About the laws, I would say, for example, let me more a practical example. There is recent surge in the phenomenon of shooters or contract killing in Lahore. And most of the criminals were residing abroad. I would name a few like Awais Cheema, Lala Shahbaz, and these sort of criminals residing in Canada or UK or these countries. And they are running the shooter network in Lahore and carrying out the activities like extortion and killing and attempted murders and things like that. And we have intimated the governments, for example, with some of the countries we do have some extradition agreement, but with some others we don't. So we don't get sort of an international cooperation that is required to sort out these criminals or arraign them in courts ultimately in Pakistan. So the laws also are weak in the sense that abetment under 109 or criminal conspiracy under 120 CRPC, PPC both are very weak laws. I have yet to see a conviction under these laws in Pakistan. So the one who is killing, actually carrying out the executing, the shooting, has nothing to do with the motive of the gun. He does not have any motive to kill, but he carries out the shooting. And actual motive of the beneficiary is residing abroad, and he is actually because of the alibi of being abroad, he gets away with the laws, and we charge him under 109, and he gets scot free. And then again, the habitual receivers of stolen property, the laws concerning the habitual receiver of stolen property are also very weak laws, and these laws also need to be amended and intensified. And then in the prosecution area, we have certain glaring weaknesses, like forensic evidence is still a weak evidence in Pakistan. Under 164 of Kanun Shahadat, it is still an optional evidence for the judge to admit it or reject it. So it is a sort of an indirect evidence, or so to speak, a corroborative evidence in most of the cases. The system still relies on the witnesses and the recovery and all that. If we don't have a direct witness to the crime, or we don't associate recovery to the criminal, we don't, the criminals are normally acquitted from the case. And then we don't have a witness protection system in Pakistan, in Lahore specifically, because in some of the cases that relate to organized crime, the witnesses normally resile during the trial. And the resiling of witnesses or the complainants is the single most largest reason for non-conviction of criminals. So this area needs to be addressed through the introduction of witness protection regime and victim support regime as well. So this is regarding prosecution, and then ultimately international cooperation is also required in the area of extradition, mutual legal assistance, and asset freezing, anti-money laundering areas. And most recently, I would like to quote the example of a drug cartel that we arrested. It was named as Jordan Gang. It was kind of a phony gang operating in Lahore since like last 15 years, arrested for the first time. And the Jordan, who was heading this syndicate, was living in Thailand and operating the gang there. And he was relying on the courier services, international courier services, for the delivery of narcos in Pakistan. And I won't name any courier services, but they are very renowned courier services, and they were exempted from the scanning rules in Pakistan. And that is the reason why he was quite comfortable in delivering the goods, narcos in Pakistan.
Let's not name and shame.
So we need to foster international cooperation in this regard, because if the courier services are they have the freedom to deliver these narcos in Pakistan, they must not be allowed to do it. And then again, and lastly, social media monitoring mechanism also needs to be strengthened. I would quote the example of London riots most recently, where the Rwandan suspect was replaced with a Muslim suspect, and then London riots took place. And again, in the Punjab college incident, a false story of rape was concocted, and then again riots took place in Punjab. So social media monitoring mechanism internationally also needs to be strengthened. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Roundshop, to Workshop for making me part of the Global Initiative Network Expert. Thank you very much. I just have a few comments to make very quickly, just 4 of them. Number one is the global challenge and the global burden that we have. In the context of organized crime that transcends borders, I believe that the developing countries bear the consequences. And one such case is of Pakistan, because of its strategic location, proximity to conflict zones, we face influx of drug trafficking, human trafficking, and cybercrime, where their local resources alone cannot fully combat. My second argument is that fragmented international support. While global awareness of organized crime is high, but I believe that international action remains fragmented and inconsistent. And there's a need for unified and cross-border solutions, and I think that can be effective with global partners. My third point is regarding lack of resources and intelligence sharing, and again for countries like Pakistan to effectively counter organized crime, it requires more than just domestic legislation. I believe the increased international support in the form of resources, training, intelligence sharing is essential to empower local agencies to tackle sophisticated criminal networks, like the examples just given by the Inspector General. And my last point is regarding call for the coordinated action. I believe that the fight against organized crime demands a cohesive global response. An international community must move beyond rhetoric to meaningful coordinated actions, providing nations like Pakistan and developing countries like others with tools, support, and partnerships necessary to make a real impact on transnational organized crime. Thank you very much. That's just all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I also request Syed Zulfikar Hussain, Director Drug Advisory and Training Council.
Thank you very much. My name is Syed Zulfikar and I represent the Drug Advisory Training Council. My specialization is in drug moderation program and crime prevention. I'm working for the last 5 years. My field is as an anti-narcotics. We are Mr. Kosa and Telimam, the both the City of Narcotics, Ministry of Narcotics in past. But we have a lot of challenges in this field. One is according to the National Survey on Drugs conducted 2012 and published in 2013 under the Ministry of Narcotics and the UNODC. About 6.7 million people are hard and soft drug except alcohol. Being an expert after 12 years, now at the moment in Pakistan, 10 million people are using hard and soft drugs. According to past survey, the government of Pakistan also trying to conduct a new survey, but we are completely failed at the moment. My request, we are working in different areas like training program, parenting skill program, non-teaching staff, education institution, roads, footpaths and parks, those persons who homeless graduates. My request, the three of organizations who are hosting this international event, in future, we involve our young generation in all these aspects. Human trafficking is a major problem. Drug trafficking, supply and demand action, there are two major components in this field. I remember that 1 or 2 months back, our ISPR, DG, gave a statement at the press conference, 3 challenging main Pakistan we are facing. One is the oil trafficking from Iran, second is the narco, and the third is tobacco industry. And my humble request under the leadership of Mr. Kosa and other colleagues who are working in the different organizations, we are also closing collaboration effort. We request please involve the young generation in all these areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I apologize. We are 3 minutes over time. We wrap up in the next couple of minutes. I take one final comment from the civil society, Mr. Asfar Shakib, representing HRCP.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to prepare a report on the rights implications of human smuggling in Pakistan. And I think one of the reasons why this is the case is because while human trafficking is viewed as a non-consensual activity, or a forced activity, human smuggling is viewed as a consensual or choice-based activity. There is an element of choice involved. So the empathy or the sympathy that would be given by the public to victims of human smuggling is not there. So one of the ways in which this narrative can be reframed and changed is to ensure that enough stories are brought to the surface. For example, from the very start, the victims of human smuggling are deceived, they are misinformed, their hopelessness is exploited. During the course of their journey, there is threat, there is abuse, there is extortion, there is even torture. If all of these stories of individual victims, and we were able to do this exercise in the case of a few victims, when we were preparing a report with HRCP, if this exercise is conducted on a wider level, more stories are brought to the surface and people will be able to realize that while they may choose to leave the country through illegal or irregular means, the rights violations that happen with them during the course of their journeys is not something they subscribe to. So a wider exercise needs to be conducted, experts need to be recruited, people who understand this issue on a wider level, and further exercise through civil society can be conducted in this. So this is a comment I will make on human smuggling.
International organizations for this event was that our voice should be heard globally. And this is where Pakistan, I think, is trying to make a difference. Each of you, the civil society, I think, along with stakeholders, are forging a partnership. And it is a humble effort. The Civil Society Alliance, which we started in 2022, currently has 35 CSOs or NGOs as members and 65 national experts. In today's roundtable, my request would be more organizations need to join. We can't work in silos. We have to work together, and I think together we can make a difference. And we will try and develop more partnerships with the civil society and NGOs, with lawyers, with professionals, with academia and private sector. So this is a very broad kind of a collaborative effort. And this UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime Review is 2 years each cluster. There are 4 clusters. Next 6 to 8 years will keep us busy in developing our systems, in improving our civil society's role as we go along facing these challenges. I'm truly grateful to John Collins for this is a befitting finale for his visit to Pakistan, first visit to Pakistan. He'll keep on coming here and we will develop more partnerships with our international community as well as we have a very strong partnership and the Center for Governance Research. We have launched this National Initiative Against Organized Crime in November 2019. And with Center for Human Rights, we are developing some key partnerships and projects and initiatives. So join us. It's a national cause, and we would especially those who have been part as practitioners. Now we are old timers. We have to pass on the baton to the younger generation, to people who really are going to be the future of this country. So therefore, our generation has failed you. We produce the Washingtons and Zardaris, and unfortunately, non-armed forces part of our contemporary also. But then, of course, political ownership is important. But the youth of Pakistan, the under 40 people, have given a message to the state, very clear and loud message: we need good governance, we need rule of law, and we need human rights to be respected. That is this is the starting point. This roundtable is a beginning of a journey that we are all undertaking together for the sake of our country. Thank you very much.